Hi, I'm Tim. Join me in this video as we assemble and test fly this 3-channel foam Boeing 787 RC model airplane. Let's get to it. I got my model of the Boeing 787 today. I honestly don't know what company makes it. It's from China, but I got mine through Banggood. I'll put a link in the description. A Google search is the best way to find out where to get one of these models. And the way it works is everything comes in the box: the transmitter, 2.4 gigahertz, the airplane, battery, 2 batteries, and the charger. So everything you need is to go to fly is there. Just one thing, FYI, this is a picture of the finished model, which is really quite nice. I've got 2 little pusher props in the back. And just for your awareness, this is a picture of the actual Boeing 787 itself in flight. So this is the box, and we'll go ahead and take a look at the parts in a moment. Right now, let's take a look at the real Boeing 787 doing some takeoffs and landings. It's Boeing's newest wide-body aircraft. They've delivered about 1,200 of these aircraft so far. It's a very nice wide-body aircraft designed to go long distances at a lower cost. This is the Boeing 787, the newest wide-body from Boeing. Wide-body meaning that it has 2 aisles in the aircraft. The idea is to fly long distances as cheaply as possible, and they do that through advanced construction methods. Here's a takeoff from Amsterdam of American Airlines 787 going to Dallas-Fort Worth, fairly long flight. With the water, you can nicely see the airflow patterns as the airplane accelerates for takeoff. Very nice gentle rotation, not too much wind you can see from the water vapor. And then the takeoff, the gear comes up, pretty big gear. You can see the 2 big main gear doors coming down. The gear goes up and then the doors shut and on to Texas. This next view is an Aeromexico 787 landing at Amsterdam. Again, a nice calm wind day. Just a beautiful job with a flare, feeling for the touchdown. And then once you touch down, immediately the spoilers come up. The idea is to get rid of the lift on the wings to put more weight on the wheels so the brakes are effective. You see that split in the engine nacelles? That's part of the reverse airflow of the engines to help decelerate the airplane to get down to a safe taxi speed to leave the runway. You can see the water vapor being pushed forward from the reverse thrust. Here is the box that the Banggood 787 comes in. Very nicely packed. Everything you need is in here except for the 3 AA batteries for the transmitter. A pretty good instruction manual. They've got good pictures. The English instructions are pretty clear. Just pay attention to them. And just overall a good discussion of everything from building the airplane to assembling it to some tips for the first flight. So here is everything that came in the box. We have the fuselage. It's foam, quite lightweight. It's a 3-channel model. You have throttle from the electronic speed control, elevator for pitch up and down to turn the airplane. I'll show you in a moment. There are 2 pusher electric motors. You have differential thrust between the 2 motors to turn. That's how it's done. So it saves another control surface and ailerons. And so the servo for the elevator is somewhere in the fuselage. It's common with these things. We'll never see it. It's somewhere in there. And this is a connector for it, I'm assuming. These are the directions that come with it. 2 pages of directions. We'll go through that. This is a typical wing. You can see the dummy engine here just for appearance purposes. This is the motor that flies the airplane. It's a pusher prop that'll plug in. And again, the differential thrust on the 2 motors is how the airplane will turn. And that's a common way to do things with these very lightweight models. Just a fin. There's no movement on the rudder. This clicks in. It looks to be the receiver and electronic speed control and where the wing motors will plug in. There is landing gear here, just little small landing gear. I think it's probably a good idea to use this landing gear. I'll think about it when I go on, just to protect the props from hitting the ground when you land after a flight. This is the battery that came in the airplane. And then there's another pack here with a battery, some other parts, and the charger for the battery. It's a USB charger. And of course the transmitter right here, 2.4 gigahertz. And again, this just goes up and down for the throttle. There's no rudder. And this will be the turn. This will be up and down. The little trim buttons right here. And we'll have to put in 4 AA batteries for that. So that's the kit so far. Let me read the directions, put it together, then I'll come back to you. All the components have been taken out of the box. Let's take another look at them. You can see the extra battery in the lower left-hand corner. The foam assemblies. The wing is all assembled with the electric motors put in place. It's one of the 2 pusher motors to keep the airplane flying and turning. The instruction manual. These are the 2 wings in place. They're held in place by 4 screws. The directions show which ones go on first. They overlap. There's a battery charger. This is an interesting unit with the on-off switch, the red light, whether it's on or off, the antenna, and the circuit board that has the receiver and electronic speed control. The screwdriver, a special tool for removing the props, the extra battery, the landing gear, screws to screw everything in. I have 4 batteries there, I just need 3. These are some LED lights which I elected not to put in my finished model. Here we're putting in the center console. You have to plug in the wires from the back. I'm not sure why there's so many wires there. It may have something to do with the gyro stabilization, but there's only one plug that goes into. Here, one of the 2 motors, it provides push or thrust. It's differential thrust to turn the airplane. I did have to add a little bit of glue to keep those motors in place. And here the red goes into red, white goes into white. Very logical arrangement for connecting the motors. Again, just an idea of the directions. You can see the left is red, the white is right. They just plug in, good luck, and that's the way it works. So now the center section is in. The battery hatch is a little bit flimsy. Be careful how you put that in. You don't want to break off the pins, the on-off switch, and then and everything's set for the center of gravity by putting it in the normal location. This is the back of the transmitter with the 3 AAA batteries installed. The USB charger for the batteries. They've got a plastic insert that goes into the foam wing. It is not a super strong insert. I put a little bit of 5-minute epoxy around all of the landing gear. I recommend that you do that. Also, the wing screws in very nice with 4 screws. I put just a touch of epoxy here to make sure the wing stays in place. The other thing I did with the vertical fin and rudder, there's a couple of very small micro magnets that hold it in place when you go in. I don't think it's enough of a hold with the magnets. Again, I used just a touch of 5-minute epoxy to keep that in place because there's no need to remove that. One other thing I do want to point out here on the accessory pack, just to reinforce the directions, this is a little tool you use to pull off the prop. If you have to replace it, they show you how to do it in the directions. Again, these are press to fit friction hold for the propellers, but note that the propellers, there is a left and a right when the little nodule is up. So just make sure you're putting the correct propeller on the correct motor if you knock one off, one left, one right. A very nice screwdriver to put in these very small screws, and a feature that I always like, to give you a few extra screws to put everything together. I've completed the assembly of this 787 model kit, and I was very impressed. It went together well. You have to read the directions carefully. They're in Chinese and English, but there's good pictures. Everything's thought through, like with the colors of the wires for the left and right ailerons to plug them into the proper sections. Underneath, you can see the hatch is closed here. This is a battery hatch that is connected to the battery inside here, an on-off switch, the wires to each motor. I think the landing gears are probably a pretty good idea to have because these props are very delicate. If you don't have the landing gear and it bellies in, the props are in danger of hitting the ground. The other thing you'll notice, if you come in close here for a second, you can hear that little chatter. What that is the automatic gyros in there working to keep the model flying straight. It's an automatic stabilization in 3 axes. It's really a nice feature to have. We'll show the controls in a second. The 3 channels are the throttle built into the electronic speed control for both motors. The elevators go up and down for pitch, and then to turn, there are no ailerons or rudder. Rather, it's differential thrust on the motors to turn left or right, and that's an effective way to do it. So let's take a look at the elevators right here from the transmitter, up, down, and that's all you need for something like this. And then the throttle. And then what will happen is, with the throttle, I'm going to move the stick left to right. You'll see one throttle moves. I'll keep it at a lower power setting. So we go left. And that's how the model turns. So it's an effective technique for something like this. I don't know where the center of gravity is. It seems about right. It's not marked anywhere. Usually with these small models, it's all designed with the battery placement and receivers to be properly balanced. I think that'll be okay. And other than that, I think that we are all set to give it for a test flight once we get some calm weather at the flying field. In the next next section, I'll see you at the flying field. We are out at the flying field. Here is the 787 on its gear on the workbench. Just a very nice model. It just really looks nice. Here's another view, just holding it. And now we'll take a look at various aspects of the model. Here's the underside. You can see the two pusher motors on back, the landing gear to keep those props clear. All in all, a very nice presentation. All right, so we're at the field. It's a good day for flying. Just a little bit of wind, but nothing we should be concerned about. Here we've got the Banggood 787. We'll take it up for a test flight here. Everything appears to be in order. Two things I want to point out for people flying. If you're used to flying an airplane where you just plug in the battery and everything starts powering up, remember you've got an on-off switch here, so just the battery's already in here. Make sure you turn this on, or else not much is going to happen. And the other thing is transmitter on first, then on this, so it doesn't go into the bind mode. And also, because of the gyros built into the receiver, make sure the model's still when you turn it on, so it has that 3 to 5 seconds to settle down before you go fly. But we'll give it a flight and see how it works. All right, all set for test flight. Off we go on the made-up flight. Ron, my good friend, was very kind to come out and give me a hand launch, and away we go. There's plenty of power for the model. I could tell instantly it was right in trim. It turns well with the differential thrust. You have to kind of get used to it, because when you turn, you lose some of the power. Normally you want to actually add power to turn to keep the model turning, but just the idea is to keep your speed up and the plane will fly well. And as you'll see, flying slightly wider patterns works to your advantage. The next flight is, I'm giving a hand launch to Ron, and off we go. Very nice launch, and Ron is up and away. Again, plenty of power. Ron's feeling out the airplane, keeping it 2 mistakes high, which is the right thing to do, and just getting a sense of how the airplane flies. Doing great. Now we're coming back in for the landing, and for the next flight, we think, well, why don't we try taking off from the ground? Now, there's no nose gear steering, but plenty of power. We're comfortable flying the airplane. Flying very nicely. Ron is correctly flying a much wider Boeing 787 pattern, so that we are at higher speed, able to turn. Very nice lineup on final, and a perfect touchdown. All right, we just finished the test flight of the 787, and I'm very pleased. It flew fine. It was in trim. It had plenty of power. It's a fast model. It's not a slow flyer. And like all planes that have differential thrust for turning, it's a little bit weird initially when you turn, because you're losing power in the turn. You usually want to keep on power during a turn. So that the technique is to keep flying your speed up so that you have that airspeed, so when you turn and you lose the thrust from that engine that's being deaccelerated, the airplane's still flying. Also on the landing, it'll come in fast just because it's a 787 with a swept wing. But overall, very pleased. It was a good flyer, an honest flyer, and I'm just very happy. It's amazing what you can get these days and bring it out to the RC field. Good luck with yours.
Well, like Tim said, this is a really fun little plane for the price especially. It flies well, As he said, you have to keep the speed up. That's the only thing that got me a couple of times, was till you learn to turn it properly, you tend to throttle back, and as you enter the turn, don't do that. If you keep the speed up, it flies really well. Especially on landing, when you're trying to slow it down, then line up for your landing before you throttle back and you'll be just fine. Fun plane. It flew well.
As always, the key to any successful maiden is a good hand launch run. Thank you for the information.
Sure.
Job well done.